All right, mate. I think we're good. Adam Peaty, welcome to the podcast, mate. How are you?
Well, I would say good if I didn't actually break my foot the other day, but otherwise, yeah, I'm good. I'm good.
Well, I appreciate you doing this, man. It's a kind of a quick one, and thank you. I know it's tough times, so let's kind of get into it. Where are you, first of all?
I'm at home. I'm in my office actually, just
Oh,
clearing off a lot of things because obviously I flew back from Tenerife early, so I'm clearing off a lot of things that were needing my attention, I guess, and well, I might as well use this time whilst I can.
wow. Is the group still down in Tenerife?
Yes, yes, they're still in till tomorrow. So Saturday they fly home. So I flew home about 3 days early, because yeah, there was no point me being out there if I had this obviously.
Well, mate, just kind of talk us through it. Like, what was the events? What happened exactly? How did it go down?
Well, I I basically was doing it like a side lunge, and then what happened was I went over on it, and normally like you brush it off, you're like, oh yeah, okay, it's only a little bit of a niggle. Just rolled it. I've rolled my ankle hundreds of times throughout my life and never ever had any problems. But I knew this one was different because it made a little bit of a crack or a snap sound,
Mm.
which isn't good. And
No.
then I kind of went straight back onto the machine row. Was really angry with myself. I was like, "Why have I just rolled my ankle?" Because even if you've rolled your ankle, it's not serious. It's still annoying. So I went back on the machine row, taking all the anger out, and I was like, "Oh, my ankle actually kind of hurts here." But then I still ignored it and I went straight to the core bit, did a bit of core, and I was like, "Okay, I need to actually look at this." So I took my thingy off. There was no swelling, there was no kind of immediate thingy. And I got a ride down the hill, basically in T3's up a hill. I didn't want to walk down to the hotel. And got a ride down to the hotel, and Mel said, take the afternoon off just in case. And then I had an MRI the next morning at about 7:30 and an X-ray. And then as soon as we saw that, I kind of sent it to the British Swimming team, and they were like, "Yeah, you've fractured it pretty much. We've sent this on to 4 other people, and they've confirmed it." And since then, we've just been making a plan to adapt. Obviously, announced it on, I think it was Wednesday. I announced that I had a fracture in my foot. So it's only been 2 days really. I've had to come to terms with not being at the World Championships, but at the same time, I think it could also be a blessing in disguise. I never believe in wholly negative situations. I always feel like there is a silver lining if you look for it hard enough. So we're just dealing with that now, and dealing with the rehab, dealing with how do we get back to full fitness.
Yeah, mate, crazy. So I guess you were holding some dumbbells at the time of the side lunge. Is that right?
No, I was
Oh,
doing nothing. I was just literally doing a side lunge, and it's
oh,
assisted, resisted. So it's basically working the adductors. So it's a
oh.
really important exercise for breaststroke. And then it just went over, and it just happens, doesn't it?
Wow, God, which bone is it exactly? Because when I looked at the X-ray, I was like, all right, there's a lot of bones, and I couldn't really tell. But
It's the fifth metatarsal, and that was an MRI scan, so you can't really tell. But it's the fifth metatarsal on the outside. So if you rush, obviously, get back into the what I've been advised that if you rush it, it could be painful for the rest of your life,
mm,
and it could be painful for breaststroke because you're like this, aren't you? So
mm.
it's not one of those things which you can unfortunately train with in the short term, but we're going to find new ways to adapt our training and overcome it.
Matt, I did see in your um, little note that you put out that you said you hadn't really dealt with injury before. That's pretty fascinating for someone like you, who works so hard and has had such a great career, that you've never really dealt with anything like this.
I've had a bicep thing in 2018, just before commies. It was pretty much all the way down here
Mm,
into my shoulder, into my rotator cuff. But I wouldn't really count that as an injury. That was more of a niggle. That was just kind of hindering my performance. It didn't stop me,
mm.
but it took a few months to kind of work around it. But no, I've been fortunate enough that I've never really had. This is my first bone I've broken. First proper thing that's actually almost disabled me. um, but at the same time, you know, as athletes, I think you're going to be very lucky, aren't you, if you don't, have an injury in your whole life.
Yeah, yeah. It doesn't seem like this is a thing that will kind of put you on the couch for 6 weeks. Am I correct there? Are you still able to do some type of exercise, maybe upper body or even some lower body?
So we're working with that now, looking at how we can maintain the aerobic capacity. I can obviously do gym, but nothing on my legs. So if you do, I did a bench press this morning, and I was basically on my back with my feet up, just in case. You know, when you do bench press, sometimes you feel like you're putting the power
Right.
down into your feet for stabilization.
Yeah.
So everything we've got to do, we just got to be, extra careful. It's not going to kind of get me on the couch for 6 weeks because that isn't me. You know, I want to see progress. I want to see, where can I improve on. But that next 2 weeks from Monday, we're going to have a full program. The British swimming team have worked really hard to make sure that I can still do stuff, and have been very clever and very adaptable in what we can do. So
Yeah.
I'm sure I'll be updating YouTube and updating kind of Instagram so people can follow that little journey. But yeah, I mean, it is going to be 4 weeks. I think this boot's going to be on for 4 weeks. I won't be able to drive for 4 weeks, maybe 3 if I'm lucky. So it is enough to be significant in terms of preparation for Commonwealths and Europeans. Obviously, it's big enough that I can't do Worlds. But yeah, I mean, that's what we have to do now. We just have to be adaptable.
Sorry, which leg was it? The right or the left?
The right. So my front, it's my driving foot. So
Oh.
and obviously my front foot on the dive as well. So it's no dives either.
Oh, wow. Dang. So it's kind of your dominant leg, I'd guess. Is that if you have a
Yes,
dominant leg, that would be it, right?
that is it. Yeah.
Is that the one you kick a football with?
Yeah. Very badly, but yeah.
Just side note, which is your football team?
Well, it depends where I go in the country. It's Forest if I'm in the East Mids. Um, but then if I'm going back home, it's got to be Stoke, hasn't it? But I grew up my dad loves Stoke, and I grew up in a school where it's either Stoke or Port Vale. So it's I don't really follow it too much though. I'm either too busy or too busy.
Yeah, but you are a British superstar, so I'm sure you've been in circles with some of those guys. Have you had a chance to kind of make friends with any of those high profile football players?
Yeah, I mean, sport in the UK is quite fortunate that you get to a lot of people and the kind of sporting world, because we are relatively a small country. People know each other, and you kind of share thoughts, you share opinions, and especially when it comes to Olympics, you all come together. So yeah, there is a few guys that I do know, but is what it is, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah. I was going to say, in that situation, those types of guys deal with injuries all the time, and in a situation like this, I always say to people who do get an injury is like, reach out to someone who's had something similar, or they've gone through something similar, or, even somebody that's dealt with an injury in terms of the psychology. Have you had people reach out to you who've said, I've gone through something similar yet, or is that still too early?
Honestly, Brett, I've put my phone down a little bit.
Right.
I don't want to see any socials. I don't want to see any kind of WhatsApps. I don't want to see anything just yet, because it's still, devastating for me. It's still
Mm,
really, it's like it's very raw.
mm,
So I don't want to kind of take advice and then forget it. And, I want to be kind of productive with anything I'm given. And obviously the support is there, especially, people I know, my family and my friends and my fans. But yeah, I mean, at the moment, it's still very raw. I'm stepping away from that a little bit, and I'll come back to that in a few days. But I mean, yeah, I mean, it's one of those things, isn't it? Because every athlete has a different story.
mm.
This is a first. I won't say the first part. No, I wouldn't say my first adversity, but it's one of my hardest parts at the moment, because normally, if there's a hard situation, I can physically and mentally get through it. Or if I'm physically down, my brain and my mental ability can take me. If my brain or my mental ability is down, my body can take me. But on this, if I work harder on my brain and my mental side, that I physically can't move it. So
Right.
it's very different. But I mean, you look at Phelps. I think it was, what was it, 07, 08, where he I think he had a wrist injury or something like that.
Mm.
And you look at all the other athletes who have had injuries and how they've overcome that. Every athlete has their own story, and at this moment, I'm just using this to look at my weaknesses, get better, and hopefully achieve more.
What are the world champion? What do they mean to you, mate? Like someone who's as dominant as you, and someone who has had so much success. What do they actually mean to you now? What are you going to the world championships to actually do?
Well,
I
before these
mean,
ones were
winning is
happening,
obvious, right? I
yeah,
mean, winning's
yeah,
winning's the
yeah,
thing, but it's like
yeah.
it's more than that, I would think, right?
I mean, sport for me, ever since probably 2018, has always been about inspiring people and trying to get the best out of other people, if that makes sense. That you perform to show the world that you perform to show that the human body can go extremely far and extremely hard, and that you can show people that it's not impossible just because people say it's impossible. So
Mm.
it's breaking down the barriers of that kind of impossible narrative and looking at how far the human body can go, the excellence, the obsession with excellence, and and putting that together. So the world championships for me have always been, yes, of course, is to win, of course, is to chase world records. I'm not going to try and hide that. A lot of athletes don't like to put that pressure on themselves, but of course, I'm going there to win. I wouldn't go there to come second. That's
Hmm.
that's not my mindset. One day I might do, but I've still not gone there to come second. And I think a lot of athletes go with that mentality. But I make sure that I'm 110% ready, 110% prepared, and physically fit. Unfortunately, I'm not now. But for me, my Commonwealths and Europeans this year won't be that. Yes, I've had a setback, which may cost me 5, 6 weeks preparation on top of the 5 months I've had off. But I know I've got the ability, and I've been given something that is I've got to utilize. I've got to utilize this gift that I've been given to push my body and push my brain, so other people feel inspired and can take something away from that, because that's what sport is. It's how it makes other people feel, and they want a little glimpse of that moment, right, of how it makes them feel.
Well, I mean, honestly, mate, this is a blessing in disguise, I guess, in that sense, because you are going to inspire a lot of people now. They're going to see a side of you that they've never seen before. They've seen the killer, they've seen the winner, they've seen the champion, and now they're going to see the guy that is able to rise up and come back, and that's going to be inspiring. You're going to reach a whole nother level of people now as well, I think, which is going to be, like I said, it's a blessing in disguise. It's not something you want to celebrate right now and embrace, but it's through this process that's certainly going to happen, mate.
Oh, thank you. And I think that's where it's important that, one, I don't get too down about myself, but I also feel the hurt, of seeing someone else win,
Mhm.
an event I want to be in, and I want to be there, and I want to be physically fit. I
Mhm.
think I'm gonna feel that, but also use that and utilize that.
Mhm.
Because when you do get to a part where you are 8 years, 7 years undefeated, and you haven't been beaten, or in a major championships anyway,
Mhm.
it does become a little bit, okay, why am I doing this? What is my why? What is my purpose? And
Right.
that is something I've struggled with a lot. And that's why I took so long off after Olympics to find that. I didn't find it, and literally only the last few days I'm like, oh, that's what it means to me now. So again, it's another silver lining, and maybe more people will follow this now that I've had this bit. But I'm not afraid to be open. I'm not afraid to say that I am devastated. I'm extremely sad, but at the same time, I can overcome this little bit of a blip. Um,
Mm.
but it's already making me feel extremely hungry for something I've not felt hunger for a very, very long time.
Right. Yeah, I imagine. Is this going to affect, like you said, the Europeans and the Commonwealths at all, or are you still on track for those, you think?
I really hope not, because Commonwealths will be my last home games, because I can't see any other championships being in the UK in the near future anyway. So I want to be there, and Birmingham is literally 40 minutes from my house, so that you don't get much better than that. You don't get much home games like that. And it's obviously Team England. That's where it's all started for me. So I want to be there, but I'm going to go on the advice of the medical team, on the advice of Mel, and everyone else who has input into what I'm doing, because even though I may have 4 years left, I may have 5 years, 6 years left, but I'm still thinking long term that I don't want this foot thing to carry on for the rest of my life. So what may cost me 2 weeks may cost me 20 years. So it's all
Mm.
that investment and thinking about big picture, and I'm aiming and hopefully will be at Commonwealth. I can't see why I wouldn't on the plan that I've been given, but everyone's different. Everyone's different.
Yeah. Mate, you have one of the best coaches in the world in Mel Marshall. She's just phenomenal, mate. I couldn't be any more impressed with a coach. Brilliant, brilliant woman. How did she react to this? What was her first kind of reaction?
I think we're both very upset initially. Well, still not upset because it was always going to be a great feat, kind of trying to get to fitness as fast as possible in January. So we went straight to Florida, and that's when my first started training really since Olympics, in terms of getting to swimming, doing 5K back to back, and getting the kind of everything going. So we literally had 3 months into Marseille, and I went 59.7 or 59.8. And I was like, okay, that's not where I need to be. I need to work a little bit smarter. I need to work a bit harder. But Mel was like, you've only been training back for 12 weeks. It's very fast for 12 weeks work. And we went into April. I was like, right, we can't really afford any taper. Not really. We had like a week. I think just a little bit lower load. But that's extremely challenging because I had an illness for 2 weeks. I caught some kind of flu. So this year's been like one of those things where we're trying to get everything right, but something always is out of our control. But we've been resilient. We've gone, you know what? Even though I'm still going to race at trials. Okay. Even though I've done this, I'm still going to race. I'm still going to train. And we've been just chasing the dragon every single day, working extremely hard because we've had to. We've had to think about absolutely everything. And the amount of hard work that's gone in the last 5 months has been, unparalleled. I've been working extremely hard, but also extremely well. I'm getting the results quick. And I'm enjoying it. Enjoyment for me is something that has also been missing last season. So I've got that back, and I'm loving it. But we both sat down after this, and I was trying to hide it how upset I was because I was like, okay, I just need to get home and just think about it logically. But we both sat there and cried because people don't understand the amount of work that goes into a World Championships, or at least fast tracking a World Championships. Like, okay, I've got 5 months to get ready, 6 months to race. How do I do it? And that takes an enormous amount of emotional and physical and mental energy that a lot of people wouldn't be able to do. So I sacrificed absolutely everything to be at these games or the championships. But that kind of adversity will set us up, I think, for the next few runs now. And I do feel it. I feel it, and I'm going to use that now when on those times where you're like, okay, I'm not going to do this as well, or I'm going to manage that. It almost brings up that hunger of 2015, 2016, which I've missed.
Yeah, is that the time? Like, to me, there was a point in your career where you created separation with the rest of the world. It was almost like you took a jump forward, and the rest of the world took this like, like, oh, what the hell just happened kind of thing. So, is that the time of your period of your career where you felt like that happened?
I think so. Yeah, I think 2015, seeing Cameron go out on that first 50, and I touched the wall. I was like, oh, I'm winning here. And then I turned and I saw his feet. I was off, like, damn. So I was like, I've got to put an amazing backhand here to win it, and I did, only just, and very, very fine. And I said to myself after that, 2 weeks after, 3 weeks after, when I went back to training, that I wasn't going to allow that at the Olympics, and that's going to require a different amount of hunger and a different amount of work and a different level of commitment and intelligence. And I came back into that 2016 as like, I was just a man on fire. And that was where hunger is that's the extra chemical that when you've been doing something for so long and you've been victorious and successful doing it, the hunger gets less and less each season. And you are winning. So there's no reason to have that hunger. And that's why a lot of athletes fall off if they're successful. But the ones that separate themselves are the ones that can keep winning no matter what, but also the ones that can have that reason why, and the reason, what is the purpose? What is the hunger? What has annoyed you in a sense? Because look at Michael Jordan, right? He had to almost create situations and scenarios where he was annoyed and he was using that raw emotion. So he'd make up scenarios in his head because that is the hunger. But now I've got a real scenario that has really, really hurt me and really agitated me. And I'm sure watching the World Championships when I do, that's going to, set off another flame. But, we've just got to take each day as it comes right now.
Yeah, you do, mate. But I just want to jump back to that real quick because I'm fascinated in this type of thing, mate. In terms of how athletes get personal separation from themselves in a way. When I did this in my own career, and I'm sure anyone that kind of gets to the top level at some point has that moment that kind of you had with Cameron, I guess, where you came back and you're like, I got to do something different here. I got to be better than this. And so I want to kind of analyze maybe some practical things that you actually did, from the person that you were to the person that you became. How do you go through that metamorphosis where it's like you become so much better than you were almost overnight, like almost in a season type thing? And like I said, it's happened to me. So what can we learn from that practically where we could tell other people, like, you could do this as well if you really make this type of commitment? You know what I mean?
Yeah, people think that it's a complicated answer, but it's really not. Like,
Mm-hmm.
you've got all these kind of things that you've got to manage and perform at.
Mm-hmm.
But as soon as you start treating things binary, so something's going to make me faster, something's going to make me slower,
Mm-hmm.
very simple, very, very simple. And follow your instinct and follow your heart, follow your mind, calculate it. Is it worth it? Because some days you may choose that slower because tomorrow it may make you faster. So that's where it gets a little bit complicated. But I mean, everyone's different, right? Everyone requires different things. Sometimes I like to spend hours on my own in a room doing stuff and just doing my hobbies because I know that's good for me. I know
Yeah.
that's, something that's going to pay its dividend tomorrow or the next week, whereas some people need to be social. So I think for me is I got the balance really, really well in
Mm-hmm.
2016, but hard work and the sessions were always a priority, always. And of course, you've got commercial opportunities. You've got to, work with your partners to maximize both of your investment.
Yeah.
But at the same time, that you've got to make sure that hard work is always number one. The hard work is something that is a non-negotiable. And I just followed Mel's lead on that. So I'm pretty sure she'll be able to give a very detailed analysis on the sets and the work I was putting in. But it was brutal, I remember going to Australia and we're doing some absolutely incredible sets, like real nasty pieces of work. But I always, after the set, I was like, right, I'm going to do 3 more sets. I'm going to do 4 more sets.
Wow.
You wouldn't get away with that right now because I'm older. My recovery time's a little bit slower, but
Mm.
at the same time, you become more specific. So the sets that you do, you're doing better and faster anyway. So yeah, I mean, that was the kind of change. I put on like 7 kilograms in Australia. Don't know how. I do know how, actually. I was eating a lot of Weetabix and jam and a lot of cake. But
You try the
you got
Vegemite, mate?
yeah. Oh no, don't like that. Don't like that. That's Marmite out here.
Marmite, yeah.
Bad stuff. Bad stuff.
Oh, that's classic. But it is a mental shift too, right? Like it's almost like a mental commitment to be like, all right. Before, like I remember going from a state of like, I hope this happens to this is going to happen. Like it's a mental shift of like, oh man, like you kind of, I hope I'm world champion. I hope I can beat Cameron Vandenberg. I hope I can do this. It's like I hope I can have a great workout today. I hope I can have a great season. Like it's like everything's based around hope, and then you take that shift and it's like, I'm going to have a great workout today. I'm going to beat Cameron Vandenberg. I'm going to win the world title. It's like you're
Yeah,
just certain things are going to happen,
I
right?
think so. I think so. I never ever saw anyone, or any of my opponents or competitors, that I never saw them every day. I saw myself, a better version of myself every day.
Mm,
So I was like, if I couldn't work harder, I couldn't do it. Next week, I'm like, right, I ain't letting that happen. I'm going to demolish it this week and
mm,
find my path to that little bit. So maybe
mm.
it's more sleep, more hydration, more stretching, more. We all have
Right.
these different roads, right? So I never really, saw them. But Mel would be like, she would kind of poke the fire where, say, we had 2100s max, and then we had another 100. She would be like, right, there's someone there. There's someone on your tail. Make sure that last 25 is this fast. If you're not, you're
Mm,
doing it again. So that's where that comes in. But
mhm.
yes, you do see the bigger picture. Yes, you want to win. Yes, you want to put that investment forward. But at the same time, it's just honestly being better than yesterday, being better than yourself, being the best possible version you can be at a championship. But I remember just before, literally a few days before we went into the village in 2016, that I was having these conversations with Mel, and I was really nervous because I think the next day we were going down to the village, and that's when it was all going to happen. And I was like, yeah, I'm really nervous now. I don't know why. I think it's because obviously the amount of work I put in. And she was like, just, be calm, do what you've always done. And, it'll come to you, instead of you going to it. And I followed that advice. I was still really fucking nervous. The night before, because in the Olympics, they do the heats at night, didn't they? So we had that. No. They had the heats late in the afternoon, early in the afternoon, and then really late at night in Rio. And I was like, I need to go burn off some nervous energy the night before. This is like 8 p.m. So I texted my gym coach and I was like, right, we need to go down the gym, just burn some nervous energy off. And then, in the morning I went a world record. So yeah, I mean, it's sometimes, you've just got to follow your heart and just calm it down, really.
I've studied the animal kingdom a bit. Like I like, Animal Planet and those types of things. I love listening, David Attenborough and people like that, but you see the top dog in the animal kingdom, like the one that you just has a presence. It's like, oh, that's the leader, and everybody kind of like, responds to that kind of aura of the leader. Now I've seen you on pool deck too, and I've seen that kind of similar aura. Do you recognize that in yourself? Like I see it in you. It comes across very clearly, like that's kind of the top dog, like, and you carry that. But do you recognize that in yourself?
I wouldn't. I mean, my personality is very, very bespoke in what I'm doing in the moment. So, for example, all day I could easily sit down and, be fine and talk to anyone. But when I'm in that arena, something just literally just switches on that. A lot of people call me intimidating, and I'm really, really trying. I'm not trying to be. I'm just, in my zone. I'm in my flow. I don't care what is happening around me. My environment is not who I am. And I just focus on myself, focus on that performance. And unfortunately, sometimes people think that's very intimidating, and maybe that helps. But I don't really notice that. I love working with Mel. I love working and just swimming fast and, getting the results that I deserve, because I worked so hard for them. I sacrificed everything. The time with my family that I'll never get back. My boy, I went to ISL when he was 3 weeks old for 6 weeks. So these are the commitments you've got to make as an athlete, and I'm not complaining at all. You'd probably do it again, because if you're not going to do it, someone else is going to do it. And I think I am misunderstood a lot of the time, that on what people think I'm thinking. It could be something completely simple and plain, but I could look very angry and very serious. But yeah, I mean, that's the price of success, I guess, that you do create this aura and you do create something which people may be afraid of to approach. But honestly, I think people that know me in the swimming world are, I'm fine. I'm just glad to have the opportunity, really.
Yeah, mate. I saw you on the pool deck in 2016. I looked in your eyes. I'm like, I'm staying away from that dude. That guy is a bad man right now. I mean, you look like you're in the zone. So, but you've also had an influence on British swimming, mate. Like there was a time where British swimming came across as a little bit weak, and it doesn't come across that way now. There's a lot of boys out there at the top of their game, and I think that's your influence. They've fed off you in that respect. Have you kind of been in that mentor role or leadership role, you think, for those guys?
I mean, again, it comes down to how you perceive yourself. It's going to be very different. I'm sure if you ask someone else, it may be different to what I'm about to say, but I think the best culture is the one that leads by example, and one that, shows how it's done. So if you focus on the process of, racing, and you focus on the process of getting something done, such as 100 breast or a 50 breast, and you absolutely dominate, that event, of course, people in on your own team, in your own culture, are going to go, you know what, I want a piece of that pie, because it's competitive. So you become competitive on the international stage, but you become competitive within the team as well, which is the best kind of culture, because you want to lift each other up, of course, but at the same time, there's that dog, that kind of fight in you, which is, no, I want exactly what he's got, or I want it better.
Right.
And you show them that there is no fear, there is no there is no kind of thing which should hold me back, you know.
Yeah, yeah, that's well said, mate. I like that. Lead by example. Listen, I am fascinated in your breaststroke. I mean, you kind of revolutionized it. That people come along sometimes in different strokes, and you're just like, that's something I've never seen before. Or you take something and you take it to a whole nother level. Can you just talk to me about your breaststroke? Because I think it's just fascinating to me. I look at it and I'm like, I can't even. It's so quick. I can't even see what you're doing. Sometimes I've got to put it in like 100 slow mo to just get an idea of what's going on down there. But talk to me about your breaststroke itself. What are you doing?
So breaststroke's very, very technical, right? We all know that. It's all about timing, it's all about speed, it's all about composure, the drag, trying to minimize drag, trying to get the most velocity, out of every movement we're doing. But I just try and keep it narrow, without being too narrow. I try and keep the force nice and fluid, instead of just janking it. So, I mean, it's very hard to explain without doing a live demo, but I haven't got a pool in my office, unfortunately. Maybe one day. But these arms, I try and press. It's all about pressing and whipping them back when you can't press anymore, and then trying to create a narrow force here. But I was always brought up with the kind of when I was training as a youngster, and I was training when I first met Mel. It's all about speed. It's all about power. It's all about trying to get that rate up, but not losing the stroke. So you see a lot of 50 breaststrokers. You see a lot of people, especially short course, that they'll just rate, but there's no
Right.
power. There's no application.
Right.
So it's all about application of that power, and making sure those legs are narrow but not too narrow. You're not doing fly kicks. You're not doing frog kicks. You're just somewhere in the middle, I guess. And yeah, it's very hard to explain. Very hard to explain.
Is this something that you guys feel like you saw a direction that you wanted to go to, and you're like, I think let's head towards there, in terms of the narrowness and the speed and the tempo, because you got it to a point where it was just like so fast and so ridiculous, so narrow, and it was just like, no one had seen it done like that. No one was doing it like that. No one was effective at that. Like you said, people would just spin. So it was like people thought you couldn't do it like that. So how did you guys get to the point where you actually created this stroke?
I mean, I don't know. I think it's just always been there. My natural ability has always been there. I don't think I ever created it. I just adapted and
Mm,
evolved.
mm,
It's one of those, right, that I think a new generation of swimmers is coming through right now, and you see the times that are being posted. That yes, there is a driving force. Yes, there is a younger force that are coming through that are faster than ever than with the human race has ever been, or the sport has ever been. And maybe they're just evolving quicker now. They've seen what has worked and what hasn't worked, and the coaches have seen that too. And we're just working with what we've got a little bit earlier. So that's what I did. I just started a little bit earlier. I've been doing
right.
this, 13, 14 years now. So, well, kind of, 14 is when I really tell myself that's when I started to really take it seriously, I guess. Um, so yeah, I mean, over 14 years of anything, you're going to find the efficiency, you're going to find the work, you're
Mm,
going to find, okay, where do I apply this? Where do I do this? And then you just got to match the mindset to that. So I'd never fear that, I can't I never fear a race, for example. A lot of people go in there nervous. Of course I go in there nervous, but I don't fear the situation.
right.
Um, and I thrive in that arena, and that's why I'll always get faster at championships, because I thrive in there, and I love it.
Tell me about your hips real quick. What are you doing with your hips? Well, what are you trying to achieve with your hips?
So trying to keep them as high as possible.
Okay.
Um, Not so much that obviously you're like a reverse triangle in the water, but I think if your head position's right, your hips will naturally come up, and then obviously your legs will follow that. So I always see the hips as a very vital part of the body in breaststroke, because your arms attached to it and they're going to follow, where that power is going. But also with the legs, which is the majority of power in breaststroke, if your hips are down, you're going to be sending that power down. So I just try and surf the water.
Mm,
um and again, it sounds very simple, but it's extremely hard to do. And that's why I love two kicks one pull so much, because it helps me just surf and get the extension and a little bit of fitness out as well, if you're doing hundreds, 200s, two kicks one pull.
Right. What about your head? Tell me, what are you doing with your head? Every breaststroker does something a little bit different. Some keep their head up, some drop their head completely. What do you do?
So, I mean, yeah, I agree that everyone has their own strategy. Someone like Chupkov on a 200 will keep his head down pretty much on that full stroke and then come up.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
But for me, I always see the head as almost, I like to get it up quick because I like to breathe, but also my chest relies on that bit to, for my elbows to come together and then drive forward. But
Mm-hmm.
as soon as my hands are through, I like to drop it. I'll just drop it really.
Mm.
Um, so yeah, I mean, it's a heavy head to carry around this one, but it's I like to just keep it, nice and neutral really, and not put too much tension through it.
Right. So you're actually forcefully dropping your head. It's not like you're falling into the stroke. You're forcefully dropping your head.
I won't say forcefully, it's just naturally kind of going down because it's
Okay.
so heavy.
So quick. Well, tell me about your legs, because I noticed, we used to teach, bring the heels up all the way up to the butt, and that's not where yours come, or unless they're coming up so quick that I don't notice it. But it almost seems to me like you do a half kick, like you come up and then snap back quickly. Tell me what you're
Yeah, I
doing.
mean, if we look at the videos that we have in British swimming where we slow it down frame by frame, they do actually come up, quite high. I
Okay.
think obviously because in a competition and where most people may see it, it may look like a half kick, but they do actually come up quite high. We of course we're making that effort to get there, so why not go the whole way and utilize that? And it's not like I've got a speed issue, so I can always get them up and down real quick. So it is still coming up to the hip, as much as I can, but I don't send it outwards. I think breaststroke traditionally has, been up to the hip, and then people
Right.
go like this
Right.
outwards. I'm like, why would you send the water there? It's just ridiculous. So when you're coming up, it's more of a kind of a obviously your feet go like this, and then it's
Mm-hmm.
pushing the water away from the outset.
Right.
Um, but again, trying to match that on a 50 breaststroke when your stroke rate is 65 is very, very difficult. Trying to get the power at the same time. But again, people have their own way, and just because this works for me doesn't mean it will work for someone else. Everyone's body shape is pretty much completely different, and we have different bones, we have different joints. So I think swimming in general is utilizing your gifts and your talents and what have you been given, and finding a way to utilize that and maximize that potential.
That's interesting that you say that, slip in water, because a lot of breaststrokers in stressful, tense situations like an Olympic Games or World Championships, you have a tendency to pull too hard because you want it so much, right? And but you are pulling hard. I mean, so what's the fine line for Adam Peaty between pulling too hard and getting that tempo to where you want it to just be clicking at the right strategy for you?
I think I'm absolutely dead by the time I finish 100 anyway, so I am probably pulling too hard, but there is no way around it. That's just where the fitness comes in. But I think there's a difference between hard and tense. I think tense is the right word that
Mm,
I think you may be looking at, that you do see a lot of breaststrokers because they want it so much they get tense.
mm.
But I just stay fluid. I enjoy it. And the last kind of 25 meters, you're absolutely hurting, but somehow you find a way to get through that. And that's where kind of people make or break, because obviously you want it. Everyone wants to win, but how are you going to get there? How are you going to utilize that to the best you can? So yeah, I mean, we'll see. We'll see. How other people do it at World Championships and how they react to 25 meters. Because it's going to be a little bit of a different final. It's going to be a different race, and everyone has their own kind of egg in the basket in that last 25 meters.
Yeah. We have talked a little bit about some of the guys coming through, and you don't need to be specific with anyone individually, but you've obviously made a
It's like a press
break.
conference, boxing.
It is. It is. I mean, you made a break initially, and then all of a sudden, the rest of the world saw what you're doing. Obviously, worked on it, made some changes, made some adjustments, put it into practice, and then the world is creeping up on you a little bit, from that separation. Now you're still the man. I'm not saying that, but the separation used to be this big, and now the separation is kind of this big in that sense. So, do you feel that? Do you feel like the world is coming up on you a little bit?
I mean, swimming is getting closer and closer. I think, obviously doing an ISL short course, you see what people's strengths are, you see what people are doing. Um, And me and Mel are just working to a thing. Okay, how do we go to 56.7? How do we go to 56.6? So yes, I mean, the gap is getting smaller in a sense of it's not 1.5, it's not 2 seconds, it's
Right.
1 second. But the amount of people, the quantity of people that are getting down to 58 mid, 58 and low is higher. So other than Arno, obviously, who's going 57.8, you know, there's a majority of people are going 58.2, 58.3, 58.4.
Right.
So that's what won 2012, right? That's what Cameron won in London. But I mean, where do I see the sport going? Where I think you've got to be very different and approach the sport and approach the event very, very different to even go 57 mid, 57 low. And I think Worlds is going to be, you know, very, very exciting. And, you know, for me, it's going to, you know, kind of prod the belly, prod the fire. Fire in the belly, sorry, not prod the belly. But I mean, it's also, swimming is one of those things. Again, what I said earlier is the younger ones are coming through now. They're looking at, okay, how do we do that? What does Adam do? What do they do? And people are getting faster, and that's where the sport is going as a whole. It's happening in freestyle, it's happening on backstroke, it's happening on breaststroke. Every stroke, it's happening, right? So
Yeah.
it's an exciting time to be in the sport because sport needs entertainment, sport needs rivalries, people that, you know, people can follow. A rivalry. So I don't get like, I mean, obviously when people go faster around the world, you're like, oh, that's gonna be a nice challenge. I want to work harder, etc. And people sometimes wouldn't want that because it may threaten you. But at the same time, how I think is that, okay, if more people are going faster, that's good for the sport. That's good for rivalries. That's good for, you know, a championship. That's exactly what sport needs. If you look at boxing, what they do well, they promote that. They promote the rivalries. They promote the championships. And they're going head to head. Who's going to win? And they get everyone involved in that. And you know, you want to see human performance. You want to see human excellence, and make it competitive.
Oh, that's good. I like that you're embracing that in a sense. You know, I do agree. Look, swimming does need the rivalries, and it can't just be about, you know, a guy being dominant. It's got to be about a guy being challenged as well. And I like that there's some young guns coming up. You think Arno's kind of the guy that's kind of created a little bit of separation and getting a little close? Is he the guy that's the most threatening to you right now, or is, you know, threatening is not the right word, but it's like,
yeah, I mean, it's really how you think about it. And if you look at the data alone, yes, of course, you know, 57.8's fast. But I mean, what did Montenegro go? It was 58.2, wasn't it? Nana went 58 is dead, so it's still 0.2 between them. Obviously, Montenegro is younger. You got Michael Andrew 58.1. Then you've got, you know, I think Ilya at 58.2. So you got a whole wealth of people going these times, and it really comes down to the championship, right? It really comes down to, you know, who's got the best mindset, who's got the best approach to the sport in those moments, because a February meet where you're going 58.5 is very, very different to a May, June, July, August, where you have to fight for a world championship final in the moment. So, yeah, I mean, I welcome that. I think, you know, the more people that go 58 low, the more that can go into a 57 high. And that's good for everyone. That's good for the sport. Because for me, I'm just trying to look at a way to go back to 56, 57 low again. So, the more that they do that, the more it pushes me because I've been in this part, and it's been a very, very lonely journey because once you pioneer something or you create something which is so different and so unorthodox, I guess, you know, you're like, oh, you know, where do I go now? How do I do this? Because no one else has done it. No one's done it before. And that's very difficult to be in because you have to think constantly of how to get faster and how to create that space. Whereas if other people are going 57 highs, you can look at them and go, oh, okay, so they're going slower there, but they're going faster there. Maybe I'll try that, and maybe that'll be a 56.7. Do you know? So there was a point in time in my career, yes, of course, where I used to get pissed off or I used to be angry at people going fast. But I don't do that anymore because it's not logical, firstly, but it's also not helpful to me because you start to get tense, you start to think, oh no, how do I do this? So I haven't done that really for a long time. And to be honest, Brett, honestly, like once we all finish our careers, you still want to be friends, right? You still want to be friends with those competitors that you've, been competitive with for a very,
Yeah.
very long time.
Yeah.
So I think there is a borderline in sport where we do take it very seriously, and I'm guilty of this myself, that you start to create a kind of a rift between you, because that's just a competitive edge. That is just what you need sometimes. But I don't want to be in a
Right.
place where I regret who I was for
Right.
those results.
Right.
I still want to create a sport which is welcome, and I want to have a good time, even if sometimes I look like I'm very serious. I'm
Yeah.
still having a good time. But it's sport is one of those things, isn't it? That in the moment we do anything for that moment, but at the same time you don't want to be looking back and having any regrets of, oh, I was a absolute idiot here, or I wasn't very nice here. So
Right.
that's when it gets personal, right? The personal
Yeah.
ones are the
Yeah.
hard ones.
Right, I gotcha. We've got a bunch of people watching us live actually around the world right now, and a couple of questions coming in. There's one here, if you don't mind answering this one, from Simon Jones. Did you have inner confidence and belief as an age group, or is this something Mel kind of molded into you over the years?
Did I have inner confidence and belief? I always had something in me. I always had a fire in me that, I guess it was confidence, but the strongest one was always belief. I think to do anything, to start any journey, whether you're climbing the tallest mountains in the world, or trying to do 100 breaths as fast as you can, or trying to get a promotion, or whatever it's going to be, you've got to have a belief that you can do something. So just because someone hasn't done it before doesn't mean you stop believing there. You create, obviously the process. You have the education, or you learn, you adapt, you fail, you succeed, and that's where you believe from. And that's always got to be there. So even in your darkest hour, you've still got to believe, which is one of the hardest things you can do.
Yeah, yeah. Listen, I appreciate your time here, and I'm sure a lot of people have got some follow-up questions. Actually, you and I are now part of a new exciting app, and I'm actually working for them full time. Any Question now, and people can find you on Any Question and kind of do some follow-up questions on there. I don't know if you'll be on it today or tomorrow, but maybe over the next few
Yeah.
weeks, you might jump back on there and answer a few
Yeah.
questions. Are you enjoying that platform at least?
Yeah, it's a really, really good, exciting platform, just because, again, obviously through Instagram, everything gets lost. And if you take social media breaks, that also gets lost. But I also find that Any Questions, you're getting a lot more kind of, I won't say educated, but more direct questions of what do you
Right.
want to know? And I can provide that. I have, yes, took a little bit of break from my phone, but I might actually
Mm.
do some now after this call. So why not?
Beautiful. There we go. Yeah, jump on Any Question, guys. Adam's going to be on there, maybe answering some. So I appreciate that. Listen, mate, I really appreciate your time. I know this has been devastating, and I think that's one of the things that Mel sent me first off, is that she said you're gutted, and she's gutted too. Like, it's not just a hit on you; it's kind of a hit on your team, and everybody's taken it very emotionally. But listen, I know for a fact you'll be back stronger than ever. And the good thing is you've got something beyond just the world championships to really aim for. I mean, you've got some really big championships ahead of you. So super excited for that. And then kind of your run into the Olympics, mate, and then your quest for that dominance at that Olympic Games coming up in the next couple of years. So I'm a huge fan of yours, mate. I think you've just done amazing things for the sport. You're a great ambassador. You're well-spoken. You're well put together. You're just an example of what hard work and discipline should be in any sport, but especially in ours. So, like I said, I couldn't be a bigger fan of yours, mate. And thanks for doing this today.
All right, cheers, Brett. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, mate. All right. Take care. Good luck with everything. All right.
All right, cheers. Thank you.
Bye. See ya.